Hi there, everyone. As Taylor said, I'm Jenny McDermott. I'm the Dean of the Nito Archibald School of Communication. And what I really want to do is just give you a quick overview of what we do in the School of Communication and why this might be of interest to you. We'll have plenty of time for questions, and I'll be able to answer questions about more than the School of Communication. So the School of Communication is a really engaging place to work. We have 10 majors and they're pretty diverse. So let me talk about them, and then if you have specific questions, chat those in and I can answer them while I'm chatting about them. First major is event management. And this is really about how we focus on developing the types of experiences that make people want to return. So events are rarely about one time, it's about what comes next and what the next event is. And so you learn about the legal ramifications, but really about the user experience. We also have game design. Now that's going to make sense to a number of you because the title is pretty explanatory, but we focus on the narrative content, how to help students understand how to develop a compelling narrative that keeps people going. So other programs focus a lot on the computer science or on the art. And we dabble in those, but we have computer science and art programs, so students can focus on that. But we focus on the storytelling aspect, so it's really exciting. Journalism, now you know what journalism is, but we take a really integrated approach to journalism. You're going to focus on some of the print, but also some of the broadcast journalism. We do something pretty unique here, and that's that we also require you to have an area of specialization that's a content area. So as a journalist, you have to have something to write about or talk about. So you might focus on politics or business or entertainment, and those give you this course of study that inform your writing. Next, we have media production and entrepreneurship. So you know what developing videos looks like and developing print materials. We take that and put it in the context of creating a business around that. How do you protect your work? How do you market your work? So the entrepreneurship element is really important. For example, the students just this past week created their own HPU The Voice extravaganza. So they wanted to produce a real entertainment show. So they worked with students all across campus, sourced the talent, got the judges, and then put on the show. In other words, they were really being the entrepreneurs. They weren't waiting for somebody else to come to them. They created it themselves. A little bit of the flip side of that is what we would call popular culture and media production. This is more, you might think of as a kind of traditional media studies or film studies program, where you learn to critique film and critique film as an artifact of society. What does it say? Who does it privilege? Who does it leave out? But we do that within the context of production. You learn to create this stuff as well, because if you learn the production elements, your critique is going to be better informed. Then we have the two sports majors. We have sports media. So it started as an offshoot of journalism. So people really interested in writing about sports, but then we broadened it to the sports broadcast and play-by-play and sports PR. So it's really creating a well-rounded communication professional focused on sports. Slightly different than that is sport management, which is the business world of sports. If you want to manage a team, manage a player, be an agent, those are within sport management. Then we have two majors that are connected to each other. We have strategic communication, or actually what is now called advertising public relations, and strategic communication. So it's the messaging to promote something, whether that is to promote a product or to do image and credibility management of an organization. Each of those has campaigns, and that's what you learn to do there. It's a very exciting field of study, and no bias, it's my own area. We have a new major in social media and digital communication. This one is becoming, as you might imagine, very popular. One, it's not because it's social media, it's because the way we created it. It's a combination of art and English and the strategic communication. Throw in some video production. There's a podcasting class. There's an option to take a drone production class, because the goal is to produce content that is going to work in a social media or online world. Writing for online content is different than writing for print, or is different than writing for a movie. So it gives you all that experience, and it requires you to work for 200 hours as a social media content person. And then our final major is new as well, is hospitality management. And similar to event management, which is about compelling experiences, we really focus on creating extraordinary hospitality moments. We focus quite a bit on like the hotel resort management aspect, but not so much on the food and beverage. You can get food and beverage in lots of places, but what you can't really understand or always get is how do you go in depth on managing conflict? How do you figure out how to get somebody who's a little resistant to experience something that would make them want to come back, to create an environment that conveys a certain message? And that's what the hospitality management program is going to look like. So that's in a nutshell, kind of the classes. But there are 4 things that all of these classes, all of these programs have in common. 1, we all focus on the elements of human communication. And what that means is, how do you engage with people? How do you present in public? How do you get your messages out there? That's what really makes our hospitality, event, and sport management programs different. Here, they're in the School of Communication, so we focus on the human aspect, the people and the messaging. In lots of schools, they're in the School of Business, which is going to focus much more on some of the accounting elements for that. So slight difference there that we think is going to be really valuable. Number 2, all of these majors have an ethical and legal component to them as well. You have to know how to navigate within those worlds because there are constraints on them, starting with what's your First Amendment rights. Right now, I hear a lot of people talk about when Facebook and Twitter canceled some people's accounts. Violation of First Amendment. Absolutely not. That's not what the First Amendment is about. First Amendment is about government interference, not private companies saying something. So you learn about that, but then also contract law and how to protect your own work and copyright. The third big thing is going to be the experiential education component. In all of them, you have to work. You have to be engaged. You have to practice. You have to develop a portfolio of work that really begins to bring things together. And the fourth one is going to bring me to the question that somebody popped up. All of them also have production as an element. It's not just that you have something to say, but you know how to say it. So whether it's video production or using motion graphics, creating a podcast, we give students what you would say, like a toolbox of skill sets that they get to pick from that will help them. And it's why our students get great internships and, by the way, get great jobs. So Micah asks, can you talk more about the video production aspect in the social media and media production? So the social media and media production, I'm assuming you're asking about 2 different majors. So the social media, you take photography courses, you take graphic design courses, you take an intro video production course. You're learning to create content for social media. Now that's quite different than creating content for film, in that it needs to be really quick. So one of the classes we're probably going to add really is iPhone filming and editing. So you have a client and something is happening and you need to film that, edit it, and upload it in 30 minutes. Well, you're not bringing out your 4K camera and then going to Premiere to do that. Instead, you might have to do that on your phone. We can teach you the skills to do that and the equipment that makes it so much easier to film high quality stuff. Now, when it comes to the media production in terms of video, we are extraordinarily lucky here. So we have our studio, we have great labs, but we also have 40 4K film kits for students to check out and do their own work. We have all the tools you could think of, all the toys you might want to play with when it comes to video production. And our studios, they're really, especially in the evenings when we're not teaching, we turn them over to students to film their own shows. The only show I will tell you that we won't have you do anymore is we let students do a cooking show. Never again. It was just a mess. But instead, we want them to do shows that have interviews. We have HPU Access, which is a student group. So we have lots of student groups around production. Sports Link is for sports. HPU Access is creating more entertainment. We have Cue the News. We have all kinds of video production student clubs as well. So that's a little bit about what brings the programs together. But what keeps the programs and the students together is the type of community we have in the School of Communication and on campus. If I was going to rebrand the university, I would say we are the student-centered university. Everything we do with our students in mind. How can we improve their experience? How can we give them something extra? How can we help them learn in a deeper, more enriching way? How can we help them see connections across disciplinary differences? So we start with our in-residence faculty, the professionals who come to campus and work with our students. It also helps us understand how the world is changing and make sure that our courses and our approach to teaching change with it. We spend an awful lot of time with our students, as you might expect. That it's the reason we all want to teach here, is to work with students and help them develop. And that, I could go on and on about the School of Communication, but it's really about the campus. It's about how we approach things as a university to remind students of the importance of a holistic education, to support students in their endeavors and their ability to make something happen, and to help them recover when things don't happen all that well. So I mentioned HPU, The Voice. It was, I must say, I so admire the initiative of these kids and how hard they worked. But I will be honest, among us, is that there were some highs and lows. There were some things that went really well, and there were some things that didn't work all that great. But here's what I know. They will learn more from the things that didn't go well, because we gave them the opportunity to try something, to create, and we gave them the opportunity to flounder a bit, and they learned from that. And that's what you always want to look for in a university that provides all the support that you feel really confident trying something, but the support to say, do it on your own, figure it out, and we're here to help you in the next step. So that's really across the university. It's the approach we take so that students know they can try that idea. They can enact that plan that they have, and they will learn from it, and we will celebrate their accomplishments, and we will figure out how to make it better the next time. So that's what we do in the School of Communication, and a little bit about what we do at the university. So now I'd like to see if there's any questions that people have. And Micah, I hope I answered your question in enough depth.
So I do have a couple of questions that I think were sent post. So one of these is asking about the Communication Fellowship and kind of what the time commitment is like for that fellows.
So the Communication Fellows Program, our Fellows Program has been it's the longest timed one on the university. We've had it for about 10 years now. So we've gotten really good at this Fellows Program. So I'm going to start by giving an overview for some of you who aren't familiar with it. The Fellows Program is an enriching, engaging student experience. Just like honors is going to allow students to take a path that has them take different classes and slightly different experiences, Fellows focuses on that as well. They're narrowed to a specific kind of content area. So the School of Communication has one, business has one, education has a Fellows Program. And we focus it on some of the education. There are classes that are for fellows, the colloquium classes. We have sections of classes that are just for fellows. It allows them to collaborate. But it's really the experiences. It's the speakers we bring in. It's the grants that we give the students to fund their own initiatives if they're going to take a trip to film something. And it's the trips we do as a group. Going to Atlanta to tour CNN and some of the other studios. Going out to LA as a group. So that is in a nutshell. But what's the time commitment? Well, I'm going to say if you want to get the most out of it, you're probably going to be spending, beyond the time that you're in class, you should be thinking of another 2 or 3 hours of collaboration and working. That will peak. There'll be times where we need the fellows to do stuff. There are go-to kids when we need help doing things, when we want somebody to show up for something. So the more time you work together, the better your experience is going to be. And the one thing we actually just don't allow is students to just disengage. That we require you to be engaged because you were picked, because we think that you're going to be a vital leader in our school, and we want to make sure that you take those opportunities and help the other students as well. So thank you. It's a great program. And even if you decide to go to another school at HPU, we now have exercise fellows, creative arts fellows. So if you decide to go into business or education, look at those fellows programs too. It's really a fabulous thing.
And can you tell us a little bit more about what type of study abroad opportunities are there within the department? I know a lot of students are really interested in, doing a study abroad opportunity while at High Point. So can you talk a little bit about that for us really quickly?
I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to talk about something else a little related to it. So study abroad is really it's an exciting thing. And we've always thought about those as kind of the Maymasters. You take a course in the spring and it culminates in some travel in May, which I think works exceptionally well because then you're informed about what you're doing. So 2 years ago, we went to Italy, and I actually went on that trip with students. And we were really looking at how companies very specifically market and use strategy to reach audiences that are not near them. So these were companies in Italy whose target audience were Americans. So we went there, we toured some plants that really targeted products towards Americans, but we also looked at a town that had reinvented itself really as a vacation spot for English-speaking guests. And it became this really fascinating thing that we could do. Other ones we have proposed and accepted, and we're just waiting for COVID times to be over, is a sport management and sport media tour of England and Wales and Scotland, looking at all the big venues and how culture affects how we engage in sports and the impact of sports in society. Then there's another strategic communication tour to Australia. Again, looking at how a different culture manages promotion of events and how they handle crisis, because the norms of crisis management do change with culture as well. There's going to be a bunch more pending because we do know for incoming students that you will have a tuition-free Maymester. So what I want you to keep in mind is perhaps it doesn't need to be another country. We are planning to open up like an HPU out of the city, out of High Point University, maybe in LA, maybe in New York, maybe Chicago, who knows where it's going to be in the country. But this will be an intense experience there that will allow you to go and live there for at least a month and get an internship, work in that city. And that can be an option to your Maymester experience as well. So think about, for everywhere, think about the experiences that you want and how to achieve them. Can you talk more about the grant you mentioned that is available to the Creative Fellows? So Micah, all the Fellows programs, if you are accepted into a Fellow program, it comes with a scholarship, and the scholarships are the same. It's $3,000 for each of the students. But what we talk about within the School of Communication is we have students who want to go, in video production. We have BEA, so the Broadcaster Educator Association, and NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters. They hold a great big joint convention in Las Vegas, usually in April. Well, our students really want to go there. They get to see all the cool stuff that's happening. They get to be part of that environment. They get to premiere some of their films. So we give them, they can apply for a grant to fund part of their trip out there. If they need a grant to cover their fees for submitting their work to festivals and events, we provide that grant. So I would expect the Creative Fellows does something really similar, but I couldn't say for sure. If I were to be a sports communication major, do we work with HBU sports team as part of the curriculum? So Carlos, not as part of the curriculum, but as part of a club. The curriculum, you work on your own projects, stuff that gets graded. When you're working with HPU sports, it really needs you to focus on what they want, not necessarily the graded element of it. But we are looking at creating more opportunities that are actually even outside the university. We have local sports that are desperate for some coverage, but we also have a minor league baseball team here in a beautiful facility that our students are working at as well. So there's lots of opportunities for you to do that, and of course develop your own projects and initiatives. And Trace, you're right, it had cut off half your question. So let me pick up where it left off. Undergrad research projects, could I be part of and contribute to the School of Communication? Do you have any examples? Yes. So here's a really exciting one. One of our faculty members has a relationship with the Sesame Street Foundation. Her area of specialty is children's media. So one of the projects that they have worked on last year, and I think this year, is looking at how, last year was watching how kids interpret unpacking videos, which is this thing I don't know terribly much about. But how, from a product placement, because those are sales events to small children. How do we create better informed kids about those? So the students did a really cool community project assessing children's perspective of unpacking videos. And then, let's be honest, they were supposed to fly up to New York and present it to the Sesame Street Foundation, who's paid for part of this research and was paying to bring them up. That was last April. They didn't get to go, nor do they get to go this April, when they're also looking at how parents and children can talk about media events. So there's lots of cool projects. They did a really cool project with children's interpretation of cereal box advertising. So the communication field is just rich. It's not just the creative, it's the how people interpret things. So Trace, lots of opportunities for research.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great day, everyone, and a wonderful week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.